The passport was nothing but ashes when I walked into the kitchen. Burned bits of paper and the blue cover lying in the stainless steel sink looked like a tiny funeral pyre. The smell of burnt plastic still hung in the air. For a moment I froze as my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. 12 years of marriage reduced to ashes, literally. Florence, the dream of my entire life. The Uffizi galleries, Michelangelo's David, Botticelli's frescoes. Everything fell apart because Michael decided I did not deserve this trip. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification from the travel app said, 3 days left until your trip to Florence, Italy. I laughed bitterly. What a joke. The same Michael who had been saying for weeks that we couldn't waste money on frivolous trips had destroyed my passport. I took a deep breath and opened the kitchen desk drawer where we kept our important documents. His passport was not there. I grabbed my phone and opened the banking app. There was a transfer of $5,000 to an account I didn't recognize, made that same morning. That's when I noticed his laptop on the living room table, still open. Michael never left his computer unlocked. I moved in cautiously as if the device might explode. On the screen, an email confirmed a hotel reservation in Florence. 2 tickets. The second ticket was in the name of Jennifer Campos. My mind was racing as the pieces began to fit together. The late-night phone calls, the so-called business meetings on weekends, the different perfumes. And now, not only was my dream trip taken away from me, but he was planning to take another woman. I didn't cry. Something inside me broke for good, but I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, I started acting methodically, as if I were watching someone else carry out all the steps. I grabbed a small suitcase, important documents, jewelry that my grandmother had left me, enough clothes for a few days, our joint credit card. I transferred half of our savings into my personal account, an account Michael had insisted I did not need, but I kept secretly. Before leaving, I left a note on the bathroom mirror in red lipstick. Have a good trip to Florence. Don't wait up for me. I drove aimlessly for an hour before calling Samantha. She was Michael's partner's wife, the only friend I managed to keep despite his subtle sabotages. I need help, was all I said when she answered. Come over right now, she replied without hesitating. At Samantha's house, I finally broke down. I told her about the passport, the trip, Jennifer. She listened quietly as she held my hand. Rachel, this isn't just control. It's abuse, she said at last. You see that, don't you? Abuse. The word hung in the air. Michael had never hit me, so how could it be abuse? But then I remembered how I had gradually lost touch with friends and family, how I had given up on my artistic ambitions because he ridiculed them, and how every decision required his approval. You can stay here as long as you need, Samantha offered. The guest room is all yours. That night, Samantha brought me a sketchbook and some pencils. You used to love drawing, she said. I hesitantly took the book, my fingers feeling the paper as if I were rediscovering an old friend. Michael found me 3 days later. He showed up at Samantha's door with flowers in his hand, and his eyes red as if he had been crying on cue. Rachel, honey, we need to talk. It was all a misunderstanding. That passport was expired. I was planning to surprise you with a new one, he said. I was stunned by how easily he could lie. And what about Jennifer? I asked calmly. His face hardened for a second before he wore that repentant expression again. Who? I don't know any Jennifer. I showed him the photos I had found on his secret phone, the messages, the plans for Florence. His complete silence said more than any confession. It's over, Michael. I want a divorce. I did not expect what happened next. The next day, Jennifer appeared, not as a mistress but with a badge. She was a financial investigator who had been working undercover for months. Ms. Carter, your husband is running a Ponzi scheme. Millions in misappropriated funds. We are about to arrest him, but we need to know. Were you aware of his business deals? The world came crashing down for the second time. Michael's empire, built on lies. The news spread quickly. Michael was arrested. His accounts were frozen. My name appeared in the papers as the wife of a con man. Amid interrogations and suspicious stares, I was cleared of any involvement. The nightmare had only just begun, yet strangely, I felt lighter than I had in years, free from the ashes that Michael had reduced my life to. The doorbell startled me. I had spent the whole morning going over the divorce papers and trying to figure out what remained of our finances after Michael's accounts were frozen. When I opened the door, I stood frozen, seeing Eleanor, my mother-in-law, waiting on the landing. "May I come in, Rachel?" she asked in a tone I had never heard before, a mix of shame and pleading. I hesitated. Eleanor had always been the guardian of Michael's perfect image. For years she had downplayed my concerns and justified his controlling behavior with phrases like, "He only wants what's best for you, dear." "Please," she insisted. "I'm not here to defend Michael." I let her into the small apartment I had rented after leaving Samantha's place. Eleanor looked around, the few unpacked boxes, the drawings I had timidly started hanging on the walls. "Are these yours?" she asked, pointing at a sketch of a cathedral. "Yes, I've started drawing again." She nodded and sat carefully on the edge of the sofa, as if she feared taking up too much space. "They're beautiful." An awkward silence settled between us. I offered her a coffee, which she accepted more as a chance to spend a few moments in my kitchen to help organize my thoughts than out of hospitality. "Rachel," Eleanor began when I came back with the cups, "I'm here to apologize." Her words completely caught me off guard. I spent years closing my eyes to what Michael did to you. In fact, I even supported him. I saw the signs, always saw them, the way he spoke for you at family dinners, how your opinions always magically lined up with his, how your dreams gradually disappeared. Tears ran down Eleanor's aged face, leaving marks on her otherwise perfect makeup. When I was young, Michael's father treated me the same way. He controlled everything: money, my friends, my appearance. I raised Michael watching that model, and when I realized he was following the same path, her voice broke. I should have stepped in. Instead, I became complicit. I couldn't respond right away. Years of hurt do not vanish with an apology, but the sincerity in her voice was undeniable. "Do you know why Michael burned my passport?" I finally asked. Eleanor shook her head. "Because Florence represented my independence. It was my dream, not ours. Something he could not control." "He's afraid of losing control," Eleanor said with a sigh. "Just like his father. That does not justify what he did. Not with our finances and not with me." "I never said it did." Eleanor straightened her shoulders. "Actually, I'm not just offering words. I have a lake house in my name, not Michael's. The prosecutors confirmed that it won't be confiscated. I want you to use it." "Eleanor, I can't." "I'm not giving you the house, Rachel. I'm offering you a refuge, a place to stay while you get your life back together. Without Michael, without my interference, just time and space for you." Her gesture touched me deeply. The lake house was a peaceful place, with a view of still water and surrounded by trees, a total contrast to the gilded prison that had been my marriage. "And there's one more thing." Eleanor reached into her purse and took out an envelope. "Here is your new passport. I used my contacts to speed things up." I took the document with trembling hands. "Go to Florence, Rachel. Live the dream he tried to burn away." The following week, I called Olivia, my sister. We hadn't talked much in years, another relationship that Michael had subtly sabotaged. When she heard my voice, she immediately asked, "Are you all right?" I saw the news about Michael. "I'm surviving," I replied. "Actually, I'm thinking about going to Florence." "Florence? That's always been your dream." Her voice brimmed with contagious excitement. "When are you leaving?" "In 2 weeks. I just bought my ticket." "Rachel, that's amazing. You deserve that more than anyone." After a pause, Olivia added, "You know, I always wondered why you stopped calling me. Now it all makes sense." We talked for hours, rebuilding the bridge that Michael had burned between us. Before we hung up, Olivia said something I would carry with me. "Rachel, you are rising from the ashes, like a phoenix." Phoenix, the mythical bird that is reborn from its own fire. It might sound like an exaggeration, but in that moment it seemed perfect. 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Italy. For the first time in years, I was traveling alone, without Michael's voice in my ear telling me what to do, see, or feel. The woman sitting next to me noticed my hands gripping the armrests during takeoff. "First time flying?" she asked kindly. "No," I replied with a smile. "First time really living." Florence greeted me like an old friend. On my first day, I aimlessly walked around, soaking in everything: the architecture, the people, and the musical language that floated all around me. On the second day, I visited the Uffizi, spending hours in front of Botticelli's Birth of Venus, feeling as moved as a child. I sat at a cafe on Piazza della Signoria, watching tourists and locals when I began drawing compulsively. My fingers captured scenes, faces, and architectural details. An elderly woman stopped to watch my work. "You have a good eye," she said in English with a strong Italian accent. "You capture the essence, not just the form." I thanked her, surprised by the compliment. She sat down at my table without ceremony and introduced herself as Lauren, an art history professor at a local university. We talked for hours about art, restoration, and preservation. "You know," she said while studying another one of my drawings, "we are looking for people for an art restoration scholarship program. Someone with your eye for detail and passion would be perfect." "Restoration? But I don't have any formal art training." Lauren smiled. "The program welcomes people from different backgrounds. It's about learning to preserve history, giving new life to works damaged by time. Metaphorically, it's about healing scars without erasing them. Healing scars without erasing them." The words resonated deeply with me. "I'm only staying here for 2 weeks," I explained. "The scholarship starts in 3 months," Lauren replied. "Plenty of time for you to get your life organized, right?" That night, in my hotel room, I looked out the window at the terracotta roofs lit by dusk. I thought about Michael locked up in his cell, surrounded by the consequences of his lies. I thought about myself, finally free to choose. I picked up my journal and began to draw what I saw. Not just the buildings and the sky, but the shadows and cracks, the imperfections that gave character to the landscape. As Lauren had said, it was about preserving without erasing scars. The next morning, I visited the scholarship office. The building was old, with peeling frescoes and stone stairs worn by time. Lauren introduced me to the director, who flipped through my sketchbook with genuine interest. "You have a natural talent for noticing what others ignore," he commented. "Restoration isn't just technical, it's about understanding." I explained my situation, the divorce, the new life I was building, and my rediscovered love for art. "I believe in second chances," said the director. "For people and for works of art, both can be reborn." I left the building with the application forms and a feeling I hadn't experienced in years: hope. Not just a fleeting glimpse, but a solid, tangible hope full of plans and possibilities. The next few days were spent between museums and churches, watching restorers work on frescoes and paintings. I was fascinated by how they stripped away decades of soot and oxidation to reveal vibrant colors underneath, how they pieced together shattered fragments, how they brought almost lost works back to life. It was exactly what I was doing with myself, I realized, removing the layers of doubt and fear that Michael had placed on me, collecting the fragments of the person I once was, restoring, not replacing. On the eve of my return to the United States, I received an email from Lauren. "Your application has been pre-approved. We just need your final documents and confirmation of interest." Confirmation of interest. As if there was any doubt. I replied immediately, "I will be back in 3 months, ready to start." On the plane, I opened my journal again. On the last page, I had started a self-portrait days earlier. I looked critically at the lines and shading, at the woman emerging on the page. She wasn't perfect. There were expression lines around her eyes, a certain imperfection in her smile. But her eyes had an intensity that captured something real. I was no longer the woman Michael had tried to shape. I was the woman restoring herself from the ashes. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. I returned to the United States just to finalize the divorce, sell what remained of my old life, and say goodbye. The legal process against Michael was still ongoing, and I received a subpoena to testify at his trial. I could no longer avoid the confrontation. The state penitentiary was 2 hours away by car. During the drive, I rehearsed in my head what I would say and how I would behave. When I saw him through the glass in the visitation room, I almost didn't recognize him. The impeccable suit and confident smile had been replaced by an oversized uniform and deep dark circles under his eyes. Still, when he picked up the phone to talk to me, his tone remained the same, a calculated mix of victimhood and manipulation. "Rachel," he said, as if my name were a prayer. "You came." "I came to testify," I replied curtly. "Don't mix things up. After everything we built together? 12 years, Rachel. You are just going to throw it all away." I felt that old wave of guilt starting to creep in, that familiar feeling that I should apologize, try to soften things or make excuses. I took a deep breath and remembered who I was now. We didn't build anything together, Michael. You built a prison around me while you robbed other people. His face hardened for a moment before he resumed the look of calculated suffering. "The prosecutors are twisting everything. They were just investments that went wrong. And about us, maybe I was too protective, but that comes from love." "That is not love," I said calmly. "Love doesn't suffocate. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't burn passports. It was a mistake," he admitted through tears. "I was jealous, desperate. The idea of you in another country far from me, the idea of me being independent," I corrected. "That is what scares you. You always have been afraid." Michael changed tactics, leaning forward with urgency in his voice. "I'm facing 20 years here, Rachel. The lawyers say that if you testify on my behalf and speak about my character, we might get a reduced sentence." There it was. The real reason behind his tears and pleading. "Is that why you think I'm here? To save you?" "You are my wife," he said, as if that explained everything. "Ex-wife," I corrected. "I'm not here to help with your defense. I'm here to look you in the eyes one last time and say that I am moving on." I took an envelope from my bag and pressed it against the glass. Inside was a drawing I had done, the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence, its imposing lines set against the Tuscan sky. "I am going to live in Florence," I explained. "I got a scholarship to study art restoration. I am rebuilding my life without you." His face went through a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. "You will not survive on your own," he said, the mask of concern finally falling away. "You need me." I smiled, not with malice, but with the calm of someone who has finally seen the truth. "You know what I discovered? I never needed you. It was you who needed me to believe it." I stood up, holding the phone for a moment longer. "I'm going to testify with the truth, Michael. No more, no less. And as for the forgiveness you asked for, maybe one day, not for you, but for me, so I don't have to carry this weight anymore." I hung up while he was still talking, his words silenced by the glass between us. For the first time, I was the one in control of ending the conversation. When I left the penitentiary, I felt weightless. There was no hate in my heart, only a strange compassion for the man trapped in his own web of lies, and an unexpected gratitude for the fire he had started. The flames that had consumed my passport turned out to light the way to my freedom. At the trial, I told everything. How Michael gradually isolated me. How he controlled our finances by giving me only an allowance. How he ridiculed my artistic ambitions. How he burned my passport. I spoke without emotion, detailing only the facts. When the defense lawyer tried to discredit me by suggesting that I should have suspected his financial moves, I calmly replied, "When you live with someone who convinces you every day that you are not capable of understanding anything complex, that every problem is met with, 'Don't worry about it,' you start believing it. Emotional abuse leaves no visible marks, but the scars run deep." Michael was sentenced to 18 years. I felt neither joy nor sadness about the sentence, only a sense of closure. A chapter was over. The following week, I flew to Florence with 2 suitcases. I didn't bring any photos of my marriage or items that reminded me of those years, just clothes, my drawing supplies, and the future ahead of me. A year had passed since I left Michael in that kitchen filled with the smell of a burnt passport. A year since I decided I would no longer be defined by his limitations. The studio where I live in Florence is small, but it has a large window that frames the cathedral dome like a living painting. On the walls, I hung my own drawings, studies of statues, sketches of tourists in the piazza, architectural details that captured my eye. One of them stands out in the center, a self-portrait I started on the plane and finished only recently. In it, my face gradually emerges from shadow to light, like a fresco being restored. The art restoration program proved to be more rewarding than I could have ever imagined. There is something deeply symbolic about bringing beauty back to works damaged by time and neglect. I am currently working on restoring a small Madonna and Child painting from the 15th century, a work that suffered decades of candle smoke and improper handling. Every layer of grime I remove reveals more vibrant colors underneath. Every crack that gets filled makes the image more complete without hiding that it was broken. It is a delicate process, I explained to a group of students watching my work. We do not try to make the painting look new as if it were never damaged. We respect its history, its scars. Restoration is about preserving, not erasing. One of the students, a young woman with observant eyes, asked, "How do you know which imperfections to keep and which to fix?" I thought for a moment. It is a matter of distinguishing what is part of the work's identity and what stops it from being appreciated fully. Some marks tell its story, while others only hide it. After the workshop, I walked along the cobbled streets to a small cafe in the square. The owner, Marcelo, already knew my order, a shot of espresso and a cannoli. I sat at the usual table, watching the flow of people and enjoying the unique rhythm of Italian life. I took out my sketchbook and started drawing a family of tourists, a mother excitedly taking photos, a father consulting a map with a confused look, two kids running in circles around the fountain. There was an energy in their movements that fascinated me, a carefree freedom. "Always drawing," said Lauren, coming over to join me. Since she had accepted me into the program, she became both a mentor and a friend. "It feels as natural as breathing now," I replied. "I can't imagine not doing this." "I heard that the committee approved your project for the spring exhibition," Lauren said proudly. "The first American accepted in 5 years." The exhibition was a show of works by emerging restorers at Palazzo Strozzi. It still felt surreal to be selected. "I'm thinking of calling my exhibition From the Ashes," I confessed. "Is that too cliché?" Lauren smiled. "It's honest. And sometimes the truth sounds cliché because it is universal. Many of us rise from some kind of fire." I agreed, thinking about how my personal story had intertwined with my work. The paintings I restore, like me, carry marks of past damage. The difference now is that those marks have become part of a new, deeper, more authentic beauty rather than defects to be hidden. Later that day, I received an email from Olivia. She planned to visit me next month, excited to see my new life and my exhibition. "I am so proud of the woman you have become," she wrote. "Or perhaps of the woman you always were, just waiting to emerge." I replied immediately, detailing the places I wanted to show her and the foods we had to try together. At the end, I added, "Sometimes I wonder if I should thank Michael. If he hadn't burned my passport, I might still be trapped in that life, slowly disappearing. It's strange how sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters." That night, I went up to the shared terrace of my building. The sun was setting over the Arno River, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that no artist could ever perfectly replicate. Other residents were spread out, an elderly couple sharing some wine, a student reading under the dimming light, a musician softly strumming a guitar. I sat on the edge, feeling the warm summer breeze. From my pocket, I took out the only thing I had kept from my old life, a scorched fragment of my original passport, preserved as a reminder. In the golden twilight, it looked less like a symbol of destruction and more like a reminder that sometimes something must be reduced to ashes for something new to be born. In 1 year, I experienced more life than in the previous 12 combined. I learned Italian, still with a terrible accent, as Marcelo kindly points out. I made real friends who know me for who I am, not as Michael's wife. I rediscovered my passion and turned it into my profession. And most of all, I learned that restoration does not mean returning something to its original state, as if the damage never happened. It means creating something new that honors both what was lost and what was found in the process. A deeper, more complex, and authentic beauty, like a phoenix, not just rising from the ashes, but being transformed by them. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. I look up at the darkening sky, at the first stars starting to appear, and I do not miss what I left behind. This is the end of one story. Yes, but more importantly, it is the beginning of mine.